Coming up on Folks, finding and paying for daycare has suddenly become a national concern. We'll take a look at the daycare dilemma through the eyes of parents and professionals in daycare on today's season premiere edition of Folks. Hello everyone, I'm Sonya Masingale, and welcome to the season premiere of Folks. As you can see, we've been making some changes during the summer. We've got a brand new look, and we're all geared up for an interesting and informative season. Today, women are in the workforce as never before, and with more women working outside of the home, who's minding the children has become much more than a philosophical question. Daycare has become a national concern for people at all economic levels. In fact, this year, we've seen the need for national policy on daycare become a presidential campaign issue for people in both the major political parties. A quick look in the Baton Rouge phone book yielded almost 100 listings for academic preschools and kindergartens. We chose to visit two of them, one privately owned, the other federally funded. We wanted to find out from parents and daycare professionals how daycare affected their lives and livelihood. Now, later on in the studio, we'll talk to some state officials about their involvement in daycare on a state level. But first, let's hear what our parents and daycare providers had to say.
Good morning to you. Look at your friends. Good morning to you. We're all in our places with sunshiny faces. Oh, this is the way to start a new day. This is the way we brush.
The Kids Connection is a privately owned daycare facility located in a predominantly middle-class area in South Baton Rouge. The children who attend Kids Connection range in age from 6 weeks through 5 years and are representative of the population of the area.
Middle income, we have mixed, black, white, Spanish, working. Majority of them work. Probably about half of them are single parents.
Beth Maum is co-owner and director of Kids Connection. She says there is good daycare available at good prices, but most parents don't know what to look for.
Because there are so many working parents, they want a place that they can be comfortable with leaving their children with. I feel that we offer that. We practically raise their children. We spend more time with them than they actually do, because by the time they get home, they feed them, they bathe them, they're in bed. So their day, what we instill in the children, it's very important, and I think, parents need to look at that when they look for daycare.
Mom feels that the government is aware that daycare is a hot issue for a growing baby boom population.
Daycare is all over now, and you hear good, bad, indifferent. Because of the workforce the way it is and more women having to go to work, those things are going to come up. It's definitely an issue right now. There is a bill up before the House. It's called the ABC bill, and from what I understand, the federal government is going to be allocating, I think it's $2.5 billion for working parents, single parents, whatever. I'm not really sure of all the details. We're trying to get it amended because from the first that I heard, and I don't know what's been happening recently, if it goes through the way it was presented, any state that accepts federal funds, the federal government would come in and set guidelines for all centers. For private daycare owners, I personally don't want that. I am for profit, and if the federal government comes in and says you can only have a 4-to-1 ratio, whereas now we have a 6-to-1 with infants, the price of daycare for parents will have to, almost double, and parents won't be able to afford it. I won't be able to stay in business. I mean, that sounds selfish, but, in a way it is. I mean, that's partly why I am in business, is to make money.
For ostrich playing in the zoo. For umbrella to keep the rain off you. Now we know our house.
Tionca Williams is Assistant Director of Kids Connection. She says that more input from the state rather than the federal government is needed to improve the availability of quality daycare.
If the state is going to send out the people, and that requirement is to come around and search the daycares and see what's going on, because we have a situation where we can be Class A, Class B, then it needs to be done to every daycare, not just to daycares that somebody may call in on, or daycares that may be in the area because you're just dropping by. Check them all out, because if the ones that are not being run right are shut down, then the other ones don't have to raise the price or try to add on to their budget to try to get more kids in, to accommodate something else, because we have so many daycares just within a year that have opened up, have shot up because it's so easy. And this is the thing, they come at the licensed daycare that are in Class A and Class B can kind of get away with things, and the people know this, so you have a choice to go in which class. So if the federal government and state would help in that area and, give those workers, if they're going out there in the field to work, let them go out there, let them find out that every daycare is being run right, not just because it's in a certain class. Let them follow the guidelines. That would help tremendously.
Vernadine Lockett is mother to 3-year-old Whitney, who attends the Kids Connection. She is keenly aware of the costs of quality daycare for working parents.
There is no other alternative. There's no one else to take care of the child while we're at work, and it's necessary that we both work. Our bills are centered around a two-family income. The only problem are financial problems and the expense that occurs from child care. You're talking about two parents away from home 12 hours a day, and it costs. We're speaking $52, $55 a week for one child, and it gets to be expensive, but it's a necessary expense. It's no way you can beat around it. It's something that has to be paid, like a house note. It has to be paid.
What could the state or federal government do to help make daycare more accessible for you?
Pick up some of the expense. I like to see them pick up the expense if it's just half of the expense. I think we're being penalized for being middle class. We pay enormous rates of taxes. Give us a break.
Good morning, boys and girls, how do you do? Good morning, boys and girls, how do you do? We are very, very glad.
Several miles away from the Kids Connection, in an older working-class neighborhood, is the Early Learning Center, a federally funded daycare program which is free of charge to all parents within certain income guidelines. The Early Learning Center is similar to the Kids Connection in that there is a well-structured academic environment for the 160-odd children who attend. Daycare is also provided for children from 6 weeks to 5 years of age.
Usually my parents are separated. I have parents who may have, on an average, 3 children. They are energetic, they are hard workers, but they also see the limitations that they have experienced. They don't want their children to go through the same negative changes that they've gone through in their life. So I have so many parents who work 1, 2, and some of them 3 jobs just to provide the day-to-day living. Now you can imagine if a person is working 2 or 3 jobs and they meet what they call poverty guidelines. That means that they are working for a living on a day-to-day basis.
Carolyn Benjamin is the director of the Early Learning Center. Although the center has suffered some cutbacks in funding, she maintains that the services they provide must continue at a high level.
Daycare has taken on a different concept now. At one time, daycare was primarily a babysitting situation. And when people became involved in the dollars associated with daycare, then it became another issue. People wanted more the quality for the dollar. And then they started looking at what they call nonprofit organization and Title 20 programs that provided what they call free daycare services for parents of low income. Well, some of these programs were of high quality, and they were of high quality simply because they gave children an edge. They gave children both the experience of the working mother striving and supporting these children, and then they gave them the edge as far as the educational background was concerned. It made that head start in daycare necessary.
Benjamin believes that the next trend in daycare will not depend heavily on the federal government.
I think that employers
need to take an active role in what their services that are being provided. If you are working for the state, then the state has a responsibility to assist you, especially with Louisiana, with the dollars being cut and the low income. Daycare and daycare services is not being eliminated. It is not being minimized. The dollars are still effective, and the need for daycare services are great. So I think that the employers must now take an active role in making sure that daycare sites are on working sites. They must be there. And then as a result, you will find out that you will have fewer people missing work. You will have a different attitude. When that child is ill, you can actually go and view your child during your lunch break. I think you'll get a whole different morale. I think mothers and fathers and grandmothers will take an active role in what their child is doing on a day-to-day basis.
I find that without daycare, we couldn't work. And it also enhances the child's ability to deal with other surroundings outside of home. The kids tend to give each other a helping hand, and also it makes them adjust to being out in the open world, especially before they get ready to go to school. And as far as my child is concerned, it's the best thing I could have done for her, because beforehand she was being kept at home and she wasn't able to learn except what you learn generally at home. But as far as coordination and skills, daycare is the best place.
Divorcee Chevette Kennedy has one child enrolled in the Early Learning Center. She is extremely pleased with the quality of daycare provided for her child, but feels that the government could play a role in helping more parents.
A lot of parents can't afford to send their child to a good, very good daycare, but the government should use, instead of using money as far as defense and all these other things that the children will not even probably get involved with when they get older. But if they put the money back into, you know, stop cutting the supplies, stop cutting the free lunch programs, you know, just put the money back into the system, it would help the parents, it would motivate the parents to do a lot more.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of
There must be a commitment by the Congress for a national daycare and Head Start program. Right now we're supporting the ABC child care legislation. If a pregnant woman has prenatal care, it will cost less than $900. Without prenatal care, it may cost up to $1,000 a day, and sometimes 20 weeks in the hospital for a low birth weight baby. My friend's Head Start daycare and prenatal care on the front side of life is much cheaper and morally correct, and the preference over jail care and welfare on the back end. And so our Congress must see the morality and the cost efficiency of daycare.
Nationally, it has been reported that 48% of all mothers of children under the age of 1 year need daycare services, and 60% of mothers of children 6 years of age and under need daycare. But what does this mean to Louisiana? Well, a recent poll showed that Louisiana has one of the largest populations of children in the country. And joining me in the studio today to further discuss the daycare situation is Theresa Anzalone. She's program manager of Daycare and Fingerprinting in the Division of Licensing and Certification in the newly reformed Department of Health and Hospitals. Also, Marion Simien, Deputy Director of the Office of Women's Services, which is now a division of the Governor's Office. Welcome to folks. We're pleased that you could join us today. Theresa, I'm going to start with you. We're hearing about this reorganization. What exactly does your department do for daycare in Louisiana?
My office is the licensing office for all daycare, all child care programs in Louisiana. If a daycare or child care wishes to operate, then they have to apply for a license through my office. Once they meet all requirements for a licensure, they are issued either a Class A or a Class B license.
Okay, now when we started out researching daycare in Louisiana, I knew that there was licensing involved, but I had no idea that there were classifications. What do these classifications mean? Who gets them and who doesn't?
Okay, the classifications came into being in September of 1985. Prior to that, we had licensure and registration. Now we have Class A and Class B. If a center is receiving any state or federal funds, it's mandatory that they be Class A. Otherwise, if it's privately operated, they can choose whether to be Class A or Class B. Class A has more regulations to meet than Class B.
Such as, just to name a few.
Okay, we have minimum standards for licensure for Class A that are regulated by my office. In addition to minimum standards, they have to meet state fire marshal's regulations, state health, city fire if it's in their jurisdiction for their city, zoning. To be Class B, presently there are no licensing standards. They are being developed by a committee, but presently there are no licensing standards for Class B. Consequently, they meet state fire, state health, city fire if necessary, zoning, and that's it.
So now, when you say standards, do you mean the structure has to look a certain way, or their teachers have to be certified a certain way, or, you know, specifically, what are
Okay, there
some
are
of the-
standards. They do not address what you just said, however. As far as the structure, they have to meet fire code, health code, and that is regulated by those two offices. They have to be set up, though, to look like a daycare center. They should be decorated appropriately so, age appropriate. They need child-size equipment, tables, chairs, baby beds if they're serving infants, high chairs, appropriate equipment, in other words. There is child-staff ratios. As far as teachers or staff being certified, no. Louisiana does not have educational requirements for staff at this time. That may be in the future, however.
Okay, so what should a parent look for when they're seeking daycare services for their child in terms of licensing? Just as I knew that there were licensing and didn't know there was some class, there are probably parents who don't even know that there's licensing. So
Right.
what should you look for? What signals
Okay.
a quality daycare center?
The first thing they should look for is the license. The license should be posted unless it is a church. If it's a church-owned center, the license could be in the office. Otherwise, all licenses are required to be posted in a public place. The license will tell them whether it's Class A or Class B, and we have quality centers of both classes. The next thing on it would be the capacity. This will tell them what they are licensed for. If they are licensed for 20 children, they should not have any more than 20 children there at any one time. This does not mean they could not have separate groups coming in during the day and leaving, but at any one time they should not exceed their license capacity. It will also tell them, the parent, what age range the center is licensed to serve. The next thing they should do, ask questions. Anything they feel uncomfortable about or that they just would like to ask, they should do so. They should tour the center. Use their eyes and ears. That is the best thing. They will be there at times, well, almost every day. They will be in and out of the center, much more so than we are. They can see what type of care is being provided. Do the children seem happy? Are they engaged in some activity? We do not have curriculum requirements. These centers are required to provide a program, but the center sets their own program. But they do have to provide some type of program so that the children do not sit and stare at each other during the day, watch TV all day, sit at a table and twiddle their thumbs. They need to be involved in some type of activity. Ask about menus. What are the children being fed? Observe staff interaction with the children. Do the staff seem to enjoy what they are doing, or is it merely a job where they are not the least bit interested in the care? TLC goes a long way in providing quality day care. Ask about discipline. What is the center's method of discipline and their ideas of discipline? Are center staff trained in what methods to follow for discipline?
Okay, now those are some very good points, but I'm going to have to touch back on your title, which is over fingerprinting as well. It says daycare and fingerprinting. Now, how does this tie in with daycare?
Okay, the fingerprinting is something that is brand new. We have had it, I've had that duty approximately 2 weeks, so we are still learning a lot about it also. It is the result of the child protection law that was passed in '87, requiring fingerprinting of all new employees for any program that has supervision and disciplinary practices over children. It is not just daycare. It is school teachers, group home staff, anyone that has supervisory practice over children.
It's fascinating. So in touching on some of the problems that we've had with daycare in the past, as any other state has had, this fingerprinting is supposed to help alleviate some of that.
Hopefully so.
Okay, Ms. Simien, I have a few questions for you, and that is, being in the Office of Women's Services, we're hearing an awful lot about, you know, daycare being a women's issue, but suddenly it's everybody's issue. We're even seeing numbers of single men taking care of children by themselves. Have you had any men seeking the services from your department?
Okay, we don't actually provide child care services, as you're aware, but we do interact in a number of ways with persons who need child care, and we are aware that there are increasing numbers of men who are responsible for their children, and of course, if they are in a situation where they need to work, they need to be away, you know, from the child, they have to have the child care. So I think we are looking at a situation where you're going to see more and more men involved in this kind of situation, because many more men, I think, are seeking and gaining custody of their children when there's a separation.
In your time with the Office of Women's Services, have you been seeing daycare becoming more important to the people who do need your services?
Definitely. I've been with the office for 13 years, and basically all of the programs that our office handles deals in one way or the other with helping people obtain self-sufficiency. And of course, most of the people that we do work with are women. We work with women who want to change their careers. We do work with women who want to become workers in non-traditional occupations. That's very important for them, because once you go into a non-traditional occupation, you have to be sure that you have all of your personal items taken care of as far as child care and any other thing that could interfere with your ability to work. Many of these women work shift work. They work at night. They work some 7 on, 7 off. So child care is very important for that group. The other group where we see a very great need for child care has to do with the teen parents. We work with a number of adolescents, and our goal in working with those individuals, those who are pregnant, our parents, is to help them continue their education, because we believe that in order to become self-sufficient, they must complete that education in order to be able to be a productive worker. So we work a good deal with those particular individuals to try and provide the child care for them. We found that that's one of the major impediments to teens, once they become a mother, being able to go back to school and complete that education is the availability of child care. So those two groups in particular, we have found really need the child care.
Okay. I understand that there are several daycare options under discussion right now in your office and in some of the other offices. Can you share some of the thoughts that are going out about daycare in the future?
Okay. There are a couple of things I'd like to mention. Of course, on a national level, we're involved in a national task force that's going to be looking at daycare trends, and that's just being formed. We have not met yet, but that particular task force is going to be looking at any federal legislation and attempting to have input into that final product. On a local level, we have been in contact with some of the other departments to discuss, and this is at a very early age, to discuss the possibility of providing some on-site daycare in some of the state offices. One of the offices that is really interested in doing this is the Department of Labor, and one reason for that is that nationally, at the federal level, the Department of Labor does have a child care center on site. So that's a very interesting concept, and it's something that we hope will be looked at and seen as a positive thing and emulated by some of the other departments.
Well, that was my next question. You just took it right out of my mouth was, where is the state in terms of being one of the largest employers? It would serve to reason that, like Ms. Benjamin said, they would be interested in providing on-site daycare. Right. Ms. Anzalone, how would that affect your office if offices, a private business or another state office was interested in setting up a daycare center on their site? How would they go about it through you?
All they need to do is give us a phone call. We will mail appropriate forms to them and help them in any way.
We know that on-site daycare helps the mothers, but how? Can you give us briefly an overview of how an on-site daycare might be of benefit to business owners and to state agencies?
Right. That's one of the things that we really are hoping to help to get the message out about, and that is the benefits to the employer. Because as everyone knows, one of the things that we're looking at now is bringing more public-private types of endeavors into the situations where we have identified problems. So from our standpoint, if you have a business that's interested in providing daycare, the things that we can point out to them is, of course, that it lowers absenteeism. That's one of the basic benefits, I think. Also, you have workers who are much more satisfied because they're not concerned about the type of care and the quality of care that the child is receiving. They're able to visit that child so they know what kind of care they're receiving. Also, it helps in recruitment for business. For instance, many of the medical facilities around the nation provide on-site daycare, and they find that they're able to recruit nurses much easier if they have the on-site daycare. So recruitment is a benefit of having the on-site daycare. So those are some of the benefits.
It's a win-win situation,
it is,
seems. One last quick question, and that is for the both of you. Do you see Louisiana as keeping up with the rest of the nation in terms of daycare for our students, for our children?
I think when our licensing standards are revised, yes, we will be, maybe not the very top, but we're getting there.
I certainly think the attitudes are changing so that we are at the forefront of what's happening. The problems that I see are financial, of course, and being able to pull the private sector in with the public sector to try and solve some of these problems. But certainly I think as far as attitudes and knowledge and the desire to become engaged in these new trends, I think it's there.
Thank you very much. We're out of time for now. But before I sign off, I'd like to remind you that Folks is for and about you. And because of our small staff here at LPB, I depend on you to keep us informed about what you would like to see on Folks. Your comments and suggestions are welcome. Please drop us a line and address your comments to Folks, LPB, 7860 Anselmo Lane, Baton Rouge, Louisiana, zip code 70810. Be sure to join us next week for the realities of cancer for minorities. See you then. Bye-bye.